We welcome you to the in the design of shaft. We are going to talk about the transmission of this about the transmission shaft and why it is stepped and its method of manufacturing. You have to cold roll and then you have to manufacture it by turning, uh, rolling, and then by drawing. Uh, then we'll talk about various failure theories used in shafts. Then we'll talk about the concept of equivalent torsional moment and equivalent bending moment. We'll also talk about design of shaft based on the strength criteria and based on the uh, torsional rigidity and lateral rigidity criteria. So there are several criteria. Out of that, we'll be discussing the design of shaft based on the strength criteria and the design of the shaft based on torsional rigidity criteria, the separate criteria. Then we'll talk about what are the ASME, American Society of Mechanical Engineers code for shaft design, and then we'll talk about the advantages of the hollow shaft over the solid shaft and the shaft subjected to different kind of loading. So these are the several topics we are going to study. I welcome you to lecture 22. Here we will be talking about the design of the shaft. So let me talk what is a shaft. Shaft is a machine element and used for transmitting torque. There are various kinds of shafts. So when it is transmitting torque, we say it's transmission shaft. And a transmission shaft normally typically looks like this. Maybe this is the axis of the shaft, and one side it is actually stepped, and you can see the steps here, and so these are the ends where the bearings are mounted. This is bearing sitting. And these are the places where you can put sprockets, pulleys. You can put gears as well. So this is having shoulders. These are stepped in concentration. If I take out this and exaggerated view of it, it is not perfectly right angle. It is actually having some fillet. So this is the fillet, and the fillet. This is the exaggerated view. The fillet is provided for reducing the stress concentration. Stress concentration. When you have a certain change of cross section from here to the other place, the change of diameter taking place, in that case you will have always a shoulder, and that is the place where the stress concentration normally happens. So to avoid that, the fillet is provided, and the fillet is provided that produces a smooth transition from one cross-sectional area to the other. So in that case you have the stress concentration will be less. So the function of transmission shaft is to transmit power, and there are axles as well. So there are different variants. One is shaft, the other is axle. You can have spindle. There are line shafts. There are several variations of the shafts. So axle is term. Let me talk about axle. Axle is normally it is a shaft and which supports element like wheels, drums, ropes, sleeves. So it is basically is a member to supports rotating elements like wheel, elements wheel and hoisting drum, rope sleeves, rope, and these drums, wheels are fitted to the shaft, and it is subjected to normally bending movement due to the transverse load. It is subjected to the bending movement by the transverse load. Let's say this is the axis of the shaft and load is the transverse to it, and that's why normally it happens. But occasionally axles are also transmitting torque. For example, automobile rear axle. The axle may also rotate and on which the wheel is supported. And for example, the rear axle this is the exceptional case where sometimes occasionally axis also axle also transmit power or rotational motion. Sometimes it is transmitting rotational motion. Whereas the spindle is a small shaft. Spindle is a small shaft. Spindle is a short rotating shaft. It is a short rotating shaft. The term spindle originates from the round tapering sticks on the spinning wheel on which the threads are twisted. While you are doing spinning of the threads, you have a spindle which rotates and make cotton threads from the fibers, cotton fibers. Spindles are used in all machine tools such as a small drive shaft of the lathe or spindle of the drilling machine. So the small shafts is known as the spindle, and it is a small drive shaft of the lathe. Example, small drive shaft of a lathe or drilling machine. Then you have a line shaft. Line shaft are a long shaft. In fact, it is short shafts joined having a common axis. They are joined with the help of the coupling. This is another shaft, and they are joined with the help of the coupling. They are the coupling. Let's say this is the bearing, and let's say this is also another bearing. Let's say this is another bearing, and let's say this is another bearing, and it contains several pulleys, and from at the end it is connected to the motor. At the end it is connected to the motor. Motor drives it, and this is shaft 1, this is shaft 2, it contains a smaller pulley, it contains a large pulley, pulley 3, pulley, right? And it is directly driven, and it is further driving other devices. It is through the belt, it rotates the other devices. Suppose another device is there, a drum, and to that something is attached, and it is actually device. This is another device, this is another device, and the power is transmitted from here to here, from motor to here, from motor to here, and they will have different pulley diameter, though the RPM of revolution per minute of each shaft are same, but the pulleys here are different, so these will be rotating in different rotation, different speed. So line shafts are connected shaft. They have common axis, and they are connected with the help of the coupling. They houses several pulleys, and they are used for driving multiple machineries. Similarly, you have another something called counter shaft. Counter shaft, it is a secondary shaft. Let's say counter shaft. It is a secondary shaft which is driven by a main shaft, and from which power is supplied to other machine components. Normally it is found in the gearboxes. Often counter shaft is driven from the main shaft by means of a pair of spur or helical gears, and thus rotates counter to the direction of the main shaft. So the counter means it is opposite to the direction of the main shaft. So counter shafts are used in multi-stage gearbox. So normally it is used in gear strap, gearbox, rotates opposite to the main shaft. So this is all about different types of shaft. One is counter shaft, the other is the line shaft, there is spindle, and we talked about the axle. We talked about the transmission shaft. Transmission shaft are stepped in nature. These are the shoulders provided on the transmission shaft, and where if you want to put a gear, let's say this is the gear, so the gear, these steps are provided so that the gear will be sitting perfectly, and it will provide it will seize the axial movement of the gears on the shaft. So the steps on the shafts are provided shoulders for positioning and transmission of the elements like gears, bearings. So these shoulders are provided for positioning as well as restricting the motion of the pulleys or the gears or the bearings along the axial direction in particular fashion. So that's why these transmission shafts are normally provided with shoulders, and the shoulders are having fillets. So and these fillets will be a smooth transition from one diameter to the other, so that will be providing a strength against the stress concentration, or it will be reducing the stress concentration effect on the shaft. So we will be talking about the materials of the shaft. So now, ordinarily transmission shafts are made up of medium carbon steels with carbon content varies from 0.1, carbon content varies from 0.15 to 0.4%. Normally the material of the steel is 30 C8 or 40 C8. These are medium carbon steels. Medium carbon. There are places where greater strength is required. So in that case we will use high carbon steels. So for greater strength of the shaft, we use normally the high carbon steel, that is 45 C8 or 50 C8 or alloy steel. These are used, and in some cases we will also use the chrome nickel steel, 16 manganese, 16 Mn, 5 chrome, 4 steel. Sometimes also use the nickel alloy steel, and these are the special purpose steel. Alloy steel possesses higher resistance to corrosion as compared to the plain carbon steel. Therefore, some applications, these advantages justify the higher cost of the alloy steels. So, in that case, we are using alloy steels. Commercial shafts are made up of low carbon steels. They are produced by manufacturing methods. One is by hot rolling. The other is by cold drawing. Cold drawing produces stronger shaft than the hot rolling process. This produces stronger shaft than the cold rolling. However, cold rolling shaft has certain disadvantages. This is having some disadvantage that the tolerance in dimensions is not perfect. So the tolerance on the diameter and straightness are not very close compared to the shaft finished by this hot rolling method. So tolerance in diameter and straightness not good in case of cold roll. In case of cold rolled shaft. So that's why we should go for the hot rolling, where the straightness is very important, dimension tolerance is very important, and after that we should be doing the turning and grinding process. The hot rolling plus turning, and plus grinding will give you the straight shaft with tighter tolerance in dimensions as well as straightness. So good dimensional accuracy, and tighter tolerance for straightness straight shaft is obtained in hot rolling. Cold rolling also produces residual stresses near the surface of the shaft. So these are another disadvantage. These are the disadvantages. The residual stresses. But when you and it also requires straightening operations, and the cost of straightening and is very costly. And hot rolling also have a problem of twisting problem. You have to untwist that. So the cost of straightening and distorted or the twisted shaft is difficult and expensive operation. Therefore, most of transmission shafts are done in such a way that the twisting is minimum, and that's why the shafts like transmission shaft by tighter tolerance in the diameter as well as straightness required. They are turned and ground. They are further hardened and oil quenched to achieve the required strength and hardness. So, the transmission shaft are cold rolled, then turned, then grinded, then quenched or heat treated. They may be so steel bars up to 200 mm diameter are commercially available. For larger size, billets are forged into bars and then finished by usual turning or grinding operations. Commercial shafts are used for structural and general engineering purposes, and their standard sizes are available. They are available in 5 mm dia, 6 mm dia, then 8 mm. The standard diameters are standard dia of the shafts are, you can find it from the table, 5 mm, then 6 mm, then 8 mm, and then 10 mm, then you have 12, and then 14 mm, then 16 mm, then 18 mm, and like that you can go up to 200 mm. You can go up to 200 mm shaft. So let us talk about the design of shaft. So as shaft is a cylindrical member, so only thing the design parameter is the diameter of the shaft. Is the only design parameter. But the shafts are subjected to different kinds of load. Sometimes it is subjected to axial load. Let's say this is the shaft and it is subjected to axial load. Sometimes it is subjected to bending load. Sometimes it is subjected to bending load. Bending moment. We try to bend it in the convex manner. Sometimes it is also subjected to twisting load. Twisting, let's say this is the shaft. This is the axis of the shaft. It is twisted. Yes. And sometimes you have the axial plus bending plus twisting. All the three loads are passed in. Or sometimes it may be axial plus bending, or sometimes the load may be bending plus twisting. So the shafts are designed on the basis of the shafts are designed on the basis of the strength of the shaft. That is one. Second is based on the rigidity. Rigidity, you have two types. One is flexural, that is your torsional rigidity, and the lateral rigidity. And lateral deflection. So when we talk of the rigidity, it is torsional rigidity or torsional rigidity, and the also let us talk about the axial load. In axial load, you consider a vertical shaft, and which is of a windmill, and this is the blade of the windmill, and the windmill where the blades are there, and when the blades are too heavy, maybe of 10 meter, 15 meter length, and when they are rotating, it will produce a vertical load. So the axial load on the shaft, sometimes you will get the axial load as well. If we want to design the shaft on the basis of the strength and the shaft of diameter D, then with the maximum permissible tensile strength in the shaft should be equal to the axial load P axial divided by pi by 4 d square. This is the resisting area. So in that case, you can find sigma T is equal to 4 P axial. We can say this is P axial divided by pi d square. So if you see the axial load divided by this is less than the allowable limit, sigma allowable, then it is satisfying the strength of the shaft. This is for axial loading. Now if it is bending load, for example, this is the shaft and there is a pulley attached to it, and this is bearing, there is a bearing here, and on the bearing, and on top of that there is load, and the pulley is driving another pulley, and since there is tension in the belt, so it will try to bend the shaft. So it will try to bend the shaft in this fashion. So the bending load, if there is a bending load, and if the bending moment is M, bending moment, so what will be the stress developed? So when it is bending like this, if you take one cross section, this one gets stretched and the other one get compressed. So this is compression, this is tension. But this will develop a normal stress. So the normal stress, sigma by I is equal to M by I is equal to sigma by Y, we know, and this is I. So from using this equation, we can find out what is sigma. We say sigma bending, because this is the bending stress. So bending is equal to, if you for a circular shaft of diameter D, we say it is 32 M is bending moment divided by pi d. We have already known it with the derivation. So, and for twisting, the shaft subjected to torsion. Let's say this is the shaft and it is subjected to a torsional movement. This way is this is this way and the other one is this way. So the torsional movement, if it is subjected to a torsional movement of this and this, both sides on the shaft, so this is the axis of the shaft, then it will develop a shear stress, and shear stress will vary maximum at the outer periphery. If you consider this is the diameter of the shaft, at the center it will be 0 and it will be maximum here, and that tau will actually equal to 16 t by pi dq. So the tau will be equal to 16 pi by pi dq. Now if the shaft is subjected to axial plus bending, in that case shaft is subjected to axial plus bending. Shaft is subjected to axial plus bending. So the axial load will produce either normal stress. Actually, this will produce normal, maybe compressive or maybe, and this will also produce normal. And they are algebraically added. Tensile positive, compressive negative. So they are added. So the normal stress will be sigma axial plus sigma bending. But when it is subjected to bending plus twisting, then we have to use the Mohr circle. Because bending is going to produce a normal stress and this will produce a shear stress. And if a component is subjected to normal stress and this shear stress like this this is the normal stress. So we know the sigma principal stress is equal to, how do you find out? This is the sigma tau coordinate and sigma, and this is the tau, this is tau. So this is the Mohr circle, and you find out this sigma 1 or principal stress is actually sigma by 2 sigma bending. This much is bending, this is tau. So sigma 1 will be equal to sigma b by 2 plus sigma y by 2 plus square plus tau square under the radical sign. And tau max in this case will be equal to sigma, the radius, that is sigma b by 2 square plus tau square. So this is the case where you have the combined bending and if you want to see the maximum shear stress in terms of if bending plus twisting, this is produced by the torque T, this is produced by the bending moment M, and if this produces the normal stress, sigma b is equal to 32 m by pi dq, and this is producing a shear stress, that is 16 t by pi dq. And as I told you, the principal stress sigma 1 is equal to sigma b by 2 plus under the radical sign sigma by 2 square plus tau square. So in this case, this will be 1 by 2 32 m by pi dq plus 1 by 2 32 m by pi dq whole square plus 16 t by pi dq whole square. That is 16 by pi dq whole into m plus t, m square plus t square. This is known as the equivalent bending moment. So am plus under root m square plus t square is the known equivalent that means if instead of applying only m, if you apply a magnitude which is equal to m plus m square plus t square under the radical sign, if this much amount of the bending moment is applied, it is going to produce sigma 1. amount of stress. Instead of m and t together, only m plus m square plus t square amount of m bending moment is applied, it will produce the same amount of sense. Now the sigma 1 is produced because of the bending moment and twisting moment. Instead of that, if you only apply bending moment whose magnitude is equal to the whole equation, that will also produce the same amount of stress. So this is equivalent to the only bending moment. Instead of bending and twisting, only moment of magnitude this is going to produce this amount of principal stress. Similarly, if you want to find out the twisting moment, that is equal to under the root sigma b by 2 square plus tau square, that is equal to 16 by pi dq. On solving, this will be m square plus t square. So the m square plus t square under the radical sign, this is known as equivalent. This is known as equivalent torsion, twisting moment or torsion. So instead of applying both m and t together, if you apply only t whose magnitude is equal to m square plus t square under the radical sign, will produce the same amount of shear stress, which is this. This shear stress is produced not only because of m, not only because of t. When both m and t are together applied, it is going to produce this amount of shear stress. So this is the equivalent twisting moment. Shafts are also designed on the basis of torsional rigidity. In certain applications, shafts are designed on the basis of torsional rigidity or lateral rigidity. A transmission shaft is said to be rigid on the basis of torsional rigidity if it does not twist too much under the action of external torque. When you apply some torque, it will definitely going to twist the shaft. But if the twisting is not too much, then we say that it is torsionally rigid shaft. Similarly, transmission shaft is said to be rigid on the basis of lateral rigidity if it does not deflect too much under the action of external force or the bending moment. So the bending moment is trying to deflect the shaft. Suppose this is the shaft and it is fixed at one end and it is supported at one end with the bearing and the load is applied, so it will try to bend it. So the deflection, if it is not too much, then we can say it is laterally rigid. That means the shaft is said to be laterally rigid if it does not deflect too much under the action of the external force or the force which is trying to bend it. In certain applications like machines, tools, spindles, it is necessary to design the shaft on the basis of the torsional rigidity. That is, on the basis of permissible angle of the twist per meter length of the shaft. And let's say the angle of twist that is permitted is theta. So the famous torsion equation says that T by J is equal to tau by R is equal to G theta by L. G is the material property, this is the theta, the permissible angle about angle of twist that shaft can have per meter length of the shaft. So this is the length of the shaft. So from this equation, if you compare the first and third term, we get this T by J is equal to G theta by L. But J is the area property of the shaft and is equal to pi d4 by 32. So if you put that, theta will be equal to, take theta on one side, so you will get theta is equal to T into L divided by Gj. It is equivalent to PL by AE in case of the equivalent of torque is force, L is the length of the shaft, equivalent of G is the E. So delta is equal to PL by AE. So these are equivalent type, and this is similar, and this one is like this, and you see the load and torque are. So this is the equation. If you want to express the theta in terms of radian instead of degree, we have to multiply 180 by pi. So this will be reducing to this. When you put the value of J is equal to pi d4 by 32, so it will be turning out to this equation. Theta is equal to 584. T is the twisting moment, L is the length, and G is the material property, torsional material property. So you get this value. GD4, D is the diameter of the so G is known as the modulus of rigidity, modulus of rigidity. The permissible angle of twist for machine tool application is 0.25 degree per meter length. For line shaft, it is 3 degree per meter length. So permissible value of shaft, the torsional rigidity, deflection, theta for transmission shaft, is equal to 0.25 degree per meter length. For other cases, line shaft, it is about 3 degree per meter length. And modulus of rigidity of steel is about 79 to 80 gigapascal, that we already know. Then we will talk about the ASME standard code for shaft design. So the ASME standard code for shaft design says the ASME code for shaft design. The shaft so let me talk about the transmission shaft. Transmission shaft always usually refers to an rotating machine element, usually circular in cross section, and this shaft supports various transmission elements like gears, pulleys, sprockets, sleeves, and this shaft is mostly used for power transmission. Right, so this is usually made in stepped section, so that each, suppose a pulley is there and it is going to rest on the shoulder, and the sprocket is there and this sprocket is going to rest on the shoulder. So based on this requirement, these sections are normally filleted, and this transmission shaft is filleted at these positions where there is certain change of cross section. And suppose a pulley is there and pulley is going to rest on this, so that it will freeze the axial movement along this direction. You can put a small lock here so that the total movement of the pulley will be restricted. So that's why the transmission shaft is usually circular in cross section, mostly used for power transmission. It supports the elements like gears, pulleys, sprockets, etc. This is stepped in constructions, and the position of the steps, there is a fillets. So this will be reducing the stress concentration, and these steps will also arrest the movement of the axial movement of the rotating elements like gears, sprockets, and bearings mounted on the shaft. So now we will be discussing how the shafts are commercially manufactured and what are the advantages of hot rolling and the cold drawing and machining of the shafts over each other. Now generally if you want to see the commercial shafts made up of carbon steels or alloy steels, initially they will have to go for the hot rolling operation. In hot rolling operation, a shaft is rolled between between the two dies, and it will be forming a circular cross section, and then it is cold drawn to reduce to a particular size. And when after rolling it is cold drawn, or after rolling it is normally machined, turned or grounded to bring to exact sizes, right? So after hot rolling, the finishing part is done by cold drawing or by turning and grinding. So if you do the cold drawing after the hot rolling, then it will be having residual stresses due to the drawing operation. And after that, if you want to machine a keyhole on the cold drawn shaft, then locally the portion which is being taken out, that for a keyhole like this, it will release the stress concentration at this location that has induced in the surface of the shaft because of the cold drawing. So once the local stress concentration is released, but other places outside the places there will be still stress concentration. So these places there will be stress concentration, and the keyhole, key wedge which is machined, there will be no stress concentration, and so there will be unbalances of stress region, and that will try to distort or bend it. So normally cold drawn shaft, that means initially all the shafts are hot rolled. After that, some shafts are going for hot rolling operation, cold drawing operation, and some of them are going for turning and grinding. But those shafts which are going for cold drawing operations, these and if you want to put a keyhole on them, then they are distorted because of the local stress concentration is released at particular region, and other region there are stresses, so they will try to bend it or distort it. So therefore, if you want a very good quality of shaft with tighter dimensional accuracy, like the transmission shaft, they are machined and grounded, and after machining they have to undergo the surface treatment operations like hardening, quenching, and other gas nitriding, other chrome plating, other operations are done after the machining operation. Stress relieving, everything is done. But normal general purpose, low cost use, non-critical use shaft, it is cold drawn. But in cold drawn there will not be any tighter tolerance of the dimension, nor you will have a good amount of the straightness. So this is a disadvantage. So while designing, we have already discussed design on the basis of the strength. We will be using the failure theory. For brittle shaft, we will be using maximum principal stress theory, and for steel shaft, which is ductile in nature, we will be using maximum shear stress theory. So maximum principal stress theory, the principal stress maximum will be equal to 16 by pi dq into m is the bending moment plus under root bending moment square plus the torsional moment square. And in this case, maximum shear stress will be equal to 16 by pi dq under the square root m square plus t square. Now we will talk about what is the meaning of equivalent torsional moment. So the term under the root m square plus t square is called equivalent torsional moment, and this amount of torsion, numerically this amount of torsional moment when applied alone to the shaft, it will produce same amount of shear stress in the shaft, maximum shear stress on the shaft, as under the combined action of the loading of bending moment of amount m and torsional or the twisting moment T together. So it will have a single, it is equal to the torsional shear stress developed because of the m square plus t square amount of the torsional moment alone, or same amount of stress will be induced by on the shaft when you are applying a bending moment of amount m and torsional moment of t. So individually applying these two together will produce the same effect, that is the same amount of the torsional shear stress, instead of applying a m square plus t square under the radical sign. And then we'll talk about equivalent bending moment. Equivalent bending moment is, that means m plus under the radical sign m square plus t square. This amount of bending moment will produce the same amount of principal stress or normal stress in the shaft as under the combined action of the load, that is the bending moment m and the torsional moment T together. So this is all about the equivalent torsional moment and equivalent bending moment. So now to summarize, what is ASME code? American Society for Mechanical Engineering code. They have formulated a permissible amount of the shear stress that the shaft can have. Is you have to find out the material property, that is ultimate strength of the shaft material and the yield strength of the shaft material. You have to multiply with 30% in this first case and 0.18 for to the yield strength, and whichever is the minimum is going to be the maximum amount of shear stress that you can apply to the, or that shaft can withstand, provided the shaft is not having any keyholes on them. If the shaft is having any keyhole, then this limit is further reduced by 25%. That means it will be minimum of these two values, that is 0.3 into sigma u ultimate, or 18% of the yield strength, whichever is the minimum. Out of that, when that is multiplied by 75%, that is 0.75, if it is the shaft containing a keyhole. So that is how the recommendation from ASME is given for limiting the maximum shear stress in the shaft because of any kind of loading, because of the combined loading. Then we will talk about the advantages of hollow shaft and the solid shaft. Now we talk about the advantages of hollow shaft over solid shaft. Now we know if circular shaft, when subjected to a torsional moment T and a bending moment M, then the shear stress induced because of the torsional moment T is given by this equation T by J into R, that is tau is equal to T by J into R. Similarly, the normal stress induced or the bending stress induced because of the bending moment M on the shaft is equal to M by I into I, where I is the moment of inertia about the principal, about the neutral axis, and this is the polar moment of inertia of the shaft material. Now the polar moment of inertia is equal to this value, that is J is equal to pi by 64 into d to the power 4. D is the diameter of the shaft. In this case also the moment of inertia is equal to pi by 32 into d to the power 4. Now y in this case of circular shaft is d by 2, In this case, r radius is equal to d by 2. Now if you see both the bending stress, this is the bending stress variation, this is the torsional stress variation. Tau is maximum at this location, and this is also sigma is maximum at this outer fiber. Now at the inner region it is very low under stress. That means the stress on this inside region is very low. So if it is very low, you can take out these materials, because underloaded material, whether it is there or not, doesn't have any problem. So you have to take it out. If you take it out, you can actually save material, and if you want to redistribute those material, it will have a larger diameter. The hollow shaft will definitely be having a larger diameter than the solid shaft from the same amount of material. If you take X amount of material, then the diameter of the hollow shaft made out of the X amount of material will be definitely more, because you have taken out the material from the center and redistributed over the periphery, so the diameter will be larger. So if you increase the diameter, what happens? If you look at this formula, T into R, it is d by 2, and in this case let me write tau is equal to capital D by 2 into T divided by 5 by 64 d4 minus d4. So in this case, if you see this is increased, but more than that the lower portion is increased. So when the lower portion is increased, so keeping this as constant, so you can have more amount of T. If you keep this as constant, if this one increases, though this is also increasing, but the denominator increases much more than this, because it is the fourth power, and this will be more. To keep this tau is equal to constant, that means for same amount of permissible stress, that is limited by the material property, because if you take aluminum, it will have some tau max. If you take steel, it will be having some. For same material, let's say aluminum, it is 70 megapascal, so it is constant for this. So if this one increases, so this will have more. So the hollow shaft will have, we can take more amount of torsional resistance. Similarly, for the other case also, you will see, that means if the diameter D increases, the outside diameter is D and the inside diameter is small d. If this is increasing, so this amount will be more. Similarly, the other case, you see the sigma will be equal to, in this case sigma is equal to m into d by 2 divided by pi by 32 into d4 minus small d4. Now if you see, again this is increased, so this, keeping this as constant, this will increase. So for the same amount of material, the hollow shaft being having a larger diameter, it can have more, it can sustain more amount of bending load, bending moment, as well as more amount of torsional movement. So compared to the solid shaft, the hollow shaft will offer higher stiffness than that of the solid shaft of the same weight. That again, the strength of the hollow shaft is more than that of the solid shaft with same height. We can also see that the natural frequency of the shaft, hollow shaft, is higher than that of the solid shaft with the same weight. But there are some disadvantages as well. So we write down the advantages. Hollow shaft, will have higher stiffness as compared to the solid shaft of same weight, and it will also have higher natural frequency. Again, the hollow shaft will be more stronger than the solid shaft of the same weight. That means it is stronger than the solid shaft of same weight. But disadvantage is the method of manufacturing. Disadvantage. Method of manufacturing. So the hollow shaft is costlier than the solid shaft because of the diameter of the hollow shaft is more than that of the solid shaft. Then it also requires more space. So these are the two disadvantages. More space requirement. More space requirement as diameter of the hollow shaft is larger.